basically what I'm doing here is I'm trying to go through what I call tabletop tales. And I'm trying to tell more of the stories of the behind the scenes stuff of who the people are. Because I think that in the board game space, like we know the games really well, but we don't know the people all that well. Good gaming champions. Welcome back to another episode of Tabletop Tales. I'm your host, Matt. And this week I am joined by a very special guest. You may know this man is the creator of the 2023 Golden Meeple Award winner for Best New Game / Party Game. And that game is, of course, Abduction. I am joined by Evan Katz, one of the co-creators and one of the founding members of Evan and Josh's Special Game Company. Evan, welcome to the table.
Thank you. It's very exciting to be here, and what an honor to win this year's award.
Well, that's how everybody said it so far. Is it's changed our lives. We're having to beat people off with a stick. We've never been more recognized. Nobody's actually said that. I just made that up for protecting my own pride. But,
I was going to say that pretty much sums it up for us. So, yeah, it's business is booming. Thanks to you.
Well, thanks to you, we have this opportunity, and we really appreciate it. And, for those out there watching this episode, Tabletop Tales is a chance for us to go beyond the table and the game itself and see the people who have created the things that we love the most. And so, Evan, it's just such a pleasure to have you today. So with that said, I'd love to get into the background of who Evan is. And why don't you give me a little bit of a history of where you began? Let's go way back.
Whoa, way back. Are we talking childhood?
Yeah. Let's see where Evan started.
All right, let's talk. I was talking with my mom not too recently, and about we had very, very strict screen time limits in our household growing up, and very frustrating to me. I was half an hour a day, which just seems impossible to even fathom right now, but of any sort of screen, computer or TV. And I had to pick. Sometimes I would do like 15 minutes of TV and 15 on the computer. But I don't know if it's correlated, but I had to spend a lot of time just tinkering with stuff and being bored because I really wasn't allowed to get online or watch TV. So he thinks that's where some of my creativity when it comes to making board games has come from. We'll never know. But the fast forward, this games company started just about 5 years ago, almost to the day. It was January 15th back in, I guess that was 2019, when we launched our first Kickstarter for a board game called Charity Party. And then it was basically a kind of variation of Cards Against Humanity, Apples to Apples, but for graphs, like funny charts. And Josh, my partner, and I, we both worked at the same business consulting firm, and I think we were both kind of looking for a side hustle project, and went from playing on sticky notes on break to being up on Kickstarter a couple months later, and we didn't have many expectations for it, but we're pleasantly surprised that we were able to turn it into a little side business, and then that little side business just became a real business. So we feel very lucky to be here.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads up to, because we're going to get all into the wonderful business that you guys have created, because especially with the growth that you've had and the number of games you've created in such a short period of time, we've got a lot to go through there. But let's start back with early Evan. So what were some of your early, so you didn't get a lot of screen time that led to being able to go outside and enjoy it, right? You weren't stuck on playing Madden and Halo all the time. So
that's definitely what I wanted to be doing. So, yeah, 13-year-old Evan was pretty pissed off about that. But, yes, a lot of outside and a lot of we had. I remember in our basement just like this box of just like old electronics that I would just rip apart basically. I didn't know anything about like putting them back together in useful ways, but I just kind of like to be like, what is in there? So a lot of tinkering and whatnot.
Yeah. So what's your first memory of a board game?
Oh, wow. Literally first memory, I think it was the game Trouble if you remember, it's like the one where you're kind of just like moving around the exterior of the board, but the key feature is that there's a kind of like half dome sphere that you hit, and it like pops up a die, and that's how you roll the die. And I think it just determines how you got to move around the board, and maybe there's some like landing on people all that. But yeah, it's probably like preschool or something. I haven't thought about that in quite a time.
Well, here's another great question to ask you about that then. What's the first chart you remember?
The first chart. That's such a good question. Well, I don't know about the first chart, but I remember the first funny charts, and I think that's something that really clicked for me. I'm pretty sure the website, and this was a time before like Reddit was big, or before Instagram, of course. And so if you wanted to find like funny pictures on the internet, there were all these individual sites that would be like, okay, here's the collection of like bad autocorrect screenshots that were funny, and it was on like its own website. And there was one, I think it was called Graph Jam. Maybe it's still around, graphjam.com. But people would submit funny charts and graphs that they had made. And, it would be like, kind of the stuff that's related to what's in our game, I'm sure. It would be like, number of beers I've had versus something else or whatever it might be. But that was certainly an inspiration to... I'd seen funny charts. I knew you could be funny with charts, and it was kind of surprised that there wasn't some sort of game that was doing that.
So here's another great early question is, what's your earliest memory of your partner, Josh Roberts?
So we worked in this little office in Memphis, and a business consulting and strategy and innovation firm. And it was my first job straight out of college. I went to college. I grew up in Boston, but went to college in Memphis. And I remember my boss giving me the tour of the office on day one, and kind of like, waved into this room over here. Actually, it was a converted old house, so very, very kind of close quarters. And then walked into the backmost room, and there's just this guy, Josh, back there, and they're like, yep, Josh is kind of our third in command around here, so get to know him. And I think we both waved, and that was that. The closest I worked with Josh, I think, prior to us actually starting in on this game company, was we both went to Vegas together, just the two of us, because there was a trade show there. Yeah, right, for business purposes. He taught me how to play craps, for sure. But Josh has a lot of Vegas experience. You should ask him about that also for work. But we went to... We had a client who was basically in the they would license sports teams' logos to make a particular product, and it's like a whole industry where the NFL, for instance, will only license their logo to like a certain amount of blanket manufacturers or a certain amount of like mug manufacturers, and so we would go to like the trade show that was in Vegas for all these different companies. And it was just a very interesting view and kind of a parallel to some things we do now, which is go to board game conferences, because it's all, it's different industry, same stuff. Everyone's got the booth. Everyone's like, oh yeah, trying to find a retailer to sell to. So
different parties.
Funny parallel. Oh yeah, way more intense.
So last early life question, which is, so when Evan was a young guy, obviously board games came later in life, but what was your initial dream?
Well, I was going to be a hair model for a while, and then, it didn't work out. I've gone through so many different iterations of what I wanted to be when I grew up. And there was a time in high school where I really was like, maybe I want to be like a toy inventor, and then not that I got pushback from anyone else, but I think I said to myself of like, that's not a career, and that's not for you. And so when I went to school for college, I really thought I was going to be a writer. not like novelist, but like do like business copywriting and stuff. And actually, I did a lot of like I would get hired to do these jobs on online for people to write their website, write their newsletter, basically anything that people needed some writing with a bit of personality in it. I did copywriting work, and I thought that was going to be my line of work for quite some time until I realized, like, you know what? I'm good at this. I enjoy it, but I don't know if I want to be writing for 40 hours a week.
So early life was to work for RCA writing instruction manuals?
Yeah, probably. I really was like, yeah, I guess I'm going to be doing like the product copy on like the back of boxes that you pick up, and in a way, that is what I've ended up doing. It's just that's a small part of what we do.
You could have had the job at Procter and Gamble of writing "Don't eat Tide Pods." You lost out.
Yeah, you got to get that sentence right. It's very important. We've found
a lot of legalities in that. So where did you
go? A lot of issues. Rhodes College, which is that is a small liberal arts school in Memphis. As my dad likes to say, their motto is "We've never heard of you either." So I think they're gaining some more like national traction. But was a great spot for me. And no board games at the time. And honestly, a lot of people think that I have this, I run a board games company. I must be like a super intense board gamer. And I'm not. I love Settlers of Catan, and have a soft spot for Bananagrams. But I'm looking over at my shelves over there, and I probably have 15 board games. And so in a way, yeah, right. And I think I really enjoy the way board games get people together. And I really like getting into especially now that we started doing some light strategy games versus just the humor stuff. There's a lot of, it feels like you can put as much effort and polish into a humor game like Charity Party or like a light strategy casual game like Abduction, as you can Gloomhaven. And so I think we really get a lot of joy and satisfaction out of being like, how do we make something that's super high quality, even in just like the rules and mechanics of it, but that is elegant and simple for somebody who might not consider themselves a gamer at all.
Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, and we'll get to Abduction in a little bit, but there's been a lot of intensity around the table with Abduction in my household. So,
good.
So let's talk about as you get out of Rhodes College and enter the real world. So what appealed to you about becoming a consultant? Was it TV shows? I'm thinking of the one with, oh goodness, what was his name? Don Cheadle. Where he's a business consultant. One on Showtime.
Oh, it's called I know exactly what you're talking about. Or I guess it's Mad Men's ad agency. But so probably important for your if you're doing the full backstory here, that maybe the most critical kind of defining feature of up till now for me is that I have like a long trail of entrepreneurial endeavors, most of which have crashed and burned or just like done weird things. And this is like number 5 or 6 of companies that I've been like, started, run, and been very, very heavily like, this is my job. And so to really, really briefly bring you through that, and I'm cutting out a lot of ones that like were like not even making the list, but kind of bizarre attempts at making money on the internet. But I started a mobile app with a friend in college called Pickle that would let people have competitive selfie contests. And it had one of those like lots of users, couldn't make any money, got investors, gave investors their money back stories. After that, I met the folks at the consulting firm through that. They were looking to bring on kind of a entrepreneur in residence, if you want to give it a fancy title. And so what really appealing to me was that, I was kind of burnt out from the full-on trying to start a tech company. situation. And so it was great to be in a spot where I could have a steady paycheck, coworkers, stability, and I did do some, more standard business consulting work, which I learned a lot from. But at the same time, they were like, "We want to start a juice company," and they had this product that was kind of a kombucha alternative. It was delicious. Made a terrible product for like logistical reasons. There's no shelf life. It was very heavy. It would literally explode from carbonation sometimes.
Great on planes.
But I ran. Yeah, exactly. It was like the Samsung Galaxy of drinks, and so that was the thing. It turned into like a shared kitchen concept. Anyway, so I've really enjoyed running these startup companies, and I think people have said to me, "Hey, wow, it's amazing! Your board game company just kind of took off and kept going." And yes, it did, but I think only because I'd had all of these other experiences of false starts. So that's and Josh has his own similar background being in advertising, and we both brought kind of a good skill set, I think.
And I think that's such a wonderful lesson for especially younger people to hear, is the reminder that it doesn't just come easy. It's easy to see people become successful and want to emulate that, but it's so hard to remember the struggles, the sleepless nights, the stress, trying to figure out your path. And one of the things I always try to recommend to young people too is sometimes those losses are the best lessons to get you where you want to be. You can't almost sometimes become successful until you realize how important that success really feels and is. You have to fail to understand how that feels first, in my opinion. And
I couldn't agree with that more. And it's almost just like I think it might even be detrimental to have your first endeavor succeed, because if it does, like, you won't have an understanding of why it succeeded. It's only, and I say this as somebody who's still very much learning myself. We try things all the time, and you have to with business or even with a particular new product concept that just they seem like a good idea and they just don't work. But you don't know what you don't know until you just start. So I think people email in all the time and say, "Hey, I've got this idea for a board game. I've been working on it for a while. What do you think I should do?" And our answer is almost always launch it immediately. It probably may not be as successful as you hope it will be, but you'll learn so much from that experience, and then you'll be in a spot where you're like, okay, I see why it didn't work now, but I now know what to do to make the next one go.
So I feel so bad for somebody like a Mark Zuckerberg who just started and it was just like, oh, I'm now a billionaire. So
I know. I mean, he
doesn't know failure.
He's had it tough.
Right. So when did you feel? So you're at this consulting firm. You meet that guy Josh over there in the back office. So when did you feel like you needed to go in a different direction away from the consulting?
So we ran Very Special Games. Wasn't called that, but we ran the board game company as a side hustle for close to 3 years. Kept our day jobs, just worked in off time and nights and all that, and it was unlike most entrepreneurial situations where you're working 60 hours a week, whatever it is. There's just some nice things about this industry where it just didn't take that much time. Even when it got to a point where it was like, well, financially we could quit our jobs. We were kind of like, well, what would we do with the remaining 30 hours of the week? So it just wasn't necessary. And it was only once we got to like, I guess once we launched our fourth game, we were starting to be like, okay, we could probably use the full focus here, because hours in a day are one thing, but when you're constantly switching back between just two completely different professions, that can be tricky. And so I went down to halftime with the consulting firm for a bit. So and actually so did Josh for a little while. So we did both kind of like step it down, and still on very good terms with the folks over there, and they do great work. And so we got very lucky that we were able to kind of we didn't have to take a leap financially. At least it didn't feel that way.
So the infamous story for you is that Charty Party was a love built on sticky notes, and so that started in 2019 when you were still full-time employees. What a great time to start a new company right before the pandemic.
Yeah, well, it was. It's so funny because we did Charty Party, and that was early 2019 when we launched that, and it went remarkably smoothly. The Kickstarter went smoothly. We learned how to use Facebook ads. It all the math all added up. We placed a print run order, and 3 months later it showed up, and we were like, oh, this is selling well, let's place another print run order. 3 months later it showed up. We were like, got it. You send stuff into Amazon and it would be ready for sale the next day. And I think it was really important that we had that experience, because the next year, everything was so much harder. And it was only because we were able to be like, well, it's not like this all the time, that I think we're able to keep going. We were fortunate enough to be in an industry that probably got a boost as far as demand, even though the logistics of the business became that much harder. But yeah, everything went smooth year one, and it hasn't been smooth since. But we can't complain. It's been a fun ride.
So, and obviously, as you go through that, it's not just, hey, we're going to make a board game. We have to figure out how we're going to publish this. We have to figure out how we're going to get this printed. So obviously Charty Party had a benefit, but Puns of Anarchy, which came out in 2020, obviously was kind of that love child that came out during a really difficult time for everybody. So how much did that change the business plan going through that transition and having to figure out shipping and distribution and printing and everything with the escalating costs?
Right. Honestly, we probably should have adjusted things even more than we did, but we were so new that it was almost just like, well, I guess we're just going to try and keep things going the way they've been going. And I think we were lucky enough that the demand, people's willingness to keep buying board games and buying this game, Puns of Anarchy in particular, people, we'd run these Facebook ads that would be like, here are 3 puns about dads or that people have made, and they just worked. And so it made the logistics easier to figure out when we were like, well, at least it feels like there's if we can get it here, that there's going to be a market for it. And Josh likes to tell this story, but so early in the company, our division of labor tended to be, I was more the marketing guy. I was doing the Facebook ads, all that sort of stuff. I built the websites. Josh was more logistics, and he was doing the freight and talking to our manufacturers. And Puns of Anarchy, we ran that Kickstarter in January of 2020. We, during that time, we were like, what is going on over there in China? It was like that scene in, Monty Python, where it's like you see the guy running from far away, and you're like, no, so you're not getting any closer, and suddenly it's like, brilliant editing. We work with a close friend of Josh's who helps us do all of our freight, and I guess he had told us, like, look, no boats are getting out of there. Sorry, dude, your inventory and Kickstarter is stuck there indefinitely, even though it had all been printed because of the lockdown. And then he called us to say, you're not going to believe this, but because Apple is Apple, and there are concerns that if they don't get their iPhone products out, like, the world economy, or at least the U.S. economy, is going to tank. The governments have let a couple of ships go that are filled with iPhones. You're on that ship. So Puns of Anarchy made it to the U.S. And there's probably many other games that did not. And I wonder how much that helped, just for the fact that we were available for sale that holiday season. So a lot of things like that, where you almost don't know what would have happened if that didn't happen.
I still remember that Apple report, February 14th, 2020. That's the day that the market started its drop. So it was a
Yeah.
scary time, and especially being that business owner, I'm a financial planner, and so to see that stress and anxiety across the faces of everybody, and especially businesses that were so dependent on production from that country, it's amazing, the amount of stress and anxiety that caused just from every aspect of life, health, wellness, and then obviously survivability of your business.
Yeah. No, I know. We got off very, very easy from a financial business. All the reasons, there are so many business owners, just people in general, who had a much more difficult time during COVID. So we're very thankful that we were able to survive.
So, in previous interviews, you've referenced a lot your ambition to learn from other Kickstarters. As you kind of observed, and it sounds like you kind of mirrored the success that other companies kind of had as you prepared your Kickstarters.
Wow, you've really done your homework. That's good. Actually, I mean, yes, for sure. But that mindset came from actually some of my previous failures with companies. Not even from this company, which was just, I like to think I'm a creative idea type of guy, and I think early on I would have all these creative ideas, not just for whatever product or service it was, but be like, and the website's going to do all this funky stuff, and we're going to sell stuff in this crazy pricing way. And not to say those things can't work, but I kind of quickly, or probably not quickly enough, over several years learned, like, you know what? The product you're launching is probably unique enough, and maybe you don't need to reinvent the wheel with everything else. And also, you might inadvertently be shooting yourself in the foot or the face, and not realize you're even doing it because you chose to price your stuff in a way that you just can't even understand the ramifications of, especially when you're entering the industry. So we took the we don't know mindset, and so we found other successful Kickstarters that seemed like they were similar. At that time we were like, okay, this is a party game. So I think we looked at Exploding Kitten. We looked at What Do You Meme? And we were like, we're going to try and copy every aspect of this Kickstarter as closely as possible, even the things we don't understand. So we just didn't know what was going to work or not. So from pricing to the number of expansion options they had to how long their Kickstarter stories and videos were, we just took the we're morons approach, and let's if it worked for them, at least if we fail, we'll know it wasn't because we formatted something incorrectly.
Well, and I think you definitely share a lot of the same humor that the group that makes Exploding Kittens and the burrito game, etc. I think
we've actually become good industry friends with them now. So it's
that makes sense.
It feels very, very fun to be able to chat with them, because we've always been like, wow, if there's one company that we're gonna try and emulate, it's those guys, and so they do very cool work.
What's your obsession with steaks?
The food?
Yeah, because that was one of the things you guys referenced was 20-year-olds eat $20 steaks and 60-year-olds eat $60 steaks.
That's funny. So I was like, what are you possibly talking about? I was like, it's either food or vampires. So one of the two. So the night that Charity Party Genesis happened was my girlfriend at the time and I were eating dinner, and somehow we're talking about what's something that would scale in relation, basically that you would pay your age for. So if you're 20, you're going to pay $20 for, and if you're 55, you're going to pay $55 for. And we came up with, we think it's a steak. If you're 75 and you're retired and you're like, yeah, I've made a bunch of money, I'm going to pay $75 for this steak. I don't know, maybe concert tickets or something else is on there. But it was just this idea that you could have, that essentially makes a graph, albeit a boring one. It's a line, a straight line. But that you could swap out the the what is this graph about over and over, and you could do it and make it funny. And then I just kind of kept tinkering around with like, well, let's make another graph that looks like this, and like what could we throw on that would be the funniest option for it. And I'm sure I played Cards Against Humanity that week or something, and I was like, I think you could just do it. I remember texting my old group of roommates and be like, do you think this could be a game? And they're like, I don't know.
Evan, I think we figured out the problem in that relationship was you were taking her to Outback for steaks, and she had to wait 20 more years to get to Ruth Chris with you.
Well, I was only 24 at the time, so $24
steak.
It's not so good.
Well, to my wife out there, if she ever watches this, honey, you're always Ruth Chris to me. So, got to save the marriage there. So, how much time? Because in the short lifespan of your business, I mean, we're talking 2019 to 2024, which is when we're filming this. You guys are basically getting ready to release your 6th game. So, what is that life cycle of the development process for you guys?
Ooh, we could talk about this for a long time, but we'll keep it brief. I mean, so in the beginning, it was pretty much just like, hey, every January we're going to launch a new game. We did that for our first 4 games, up until we went Charty Party, then Puns of Anarchy, then Ransom Notes, we had this loose timeline in our head of like, all right, we'll be starting to work on a game even as the other one's kind of going into production, and that kind of worked out in a pretty manageable pace. And then our 4th game was called Open Relationships, and we put it out, and it was kind of a comparing 2 wildly different things type of party game. Pretty much flopped. At least in the way that there are certain signs that we needed to see of like, hey, this is a thing we're going to be able to advertise and turn into a viable product. And even though we got some great support from our existing audience, our ability to sell it in a wider sense was just way worse than we thought. And that was very scary, because we were like, what? If we're only launching 1 game per year, and like we don't know how long the life cycle of our previous games we've launched are, this could be a problem. So got into this like almost like mad scramble to be like, how do we put out another product? And kind of, there's many times I look back to the business, a lot of times the things that have caused us to take the next step and get up to the next level have been started because of some sort of problem that was going on. So it kind of spurred us to just explore some wackier stuff. And one of those ideas was an idea of just lining up cute ducks. And the other one of those ideas, and this was both around the time, and I guess that was 2021, because I remember being at a cabin with some friends and like fortunate to play these games that weren't even games yet. But so we had this lines in the ducks in the line concept, and then we had this other one that was about taking string and like stretching it across the table between people and creating this like web of string that you'd try and like maneuver through, like a dexterity game. Ducks became Abduction, and then 2 years later, String Game became Tiny Laser Heist. So that was a very creatively productive time period for us, even though it then took some time to turn those into polished concepts.
Available for pre-order now on your website, of course.
Available for pre-order now for only $49.99. You can, for anyone listening, you can use code Very Special Friends, and not for the pre-order products, but for anything else, get 20% off.
There it is. We'll definitely promote that. And you brought up a couple points that I think are important. We ask the question a lot of times of when do you know your game is ready? Because there's a lot of first-time developers who always have that fear. And you've said a couple different things today in regards of like, one, just kind of getting products out there and kind of letting the market give you that feedback. And then you had the one game you had referenced earlier, Open Relationships. How do you guys feel confident that this game is ready to hit the market, or is it just a gut? Is there consumer feedback you get from like testing markets? What does that look like for you?
So we kind of look at a couple different things. from a, if we're going to try and be like scientific about it, which we like to try and be, even though you really, it's more art than science always, I think.
This is where you get the business consultant background out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Gotta flex those muscles. If my old boss is listening, he'll be proud. Because it is risky, especially when you're at a time when you're launching one product per year. When you're one product per year flops, like that's a big investment of time, if not money. So from the kind of technical ways is it's going to work standpoint, yes, of course we play it with lots of folks, but we actually, because we're such a Facebook marketing, Instagram ad themed or not themed, driven company, we'll do some kind of coming soon, sign up, put your email in to get on the list for the Kickstarter tests of different concepts pretty early on in the process. Because we know that, well, we got to be able to sell this thing, and that's the primary way we sell it. And if people don't want to click on it, it doesn't really matter how good of a game it is. So there's that aspect to it. But then I think, and this is a kind of a constantly evolving mindset for Josh and I, because we really take a lot of pride in trying to make these casual games still incredibly high quality, pretty much in every way, from the components, but also just like the gameplay. And there's been a lot of times with especially Abduction and Tiny Laser Heist where it was probably good enough, but we kept going to even make it more polished and almost like user friendly. And I think for me, the thing that I start to look for when we're doing playtesting is not were there great moments of fun, and every time you play, were there some awesome moments of whatever it might be where people were jumping out of their seat or just like super satisfied, but almost have we essentially eliminated all the bad moments? Because I think that can happen a lot. We're yeah, your game does some great stuff, but it took 25 minutes to learn, and also look around the table for most of it. People are twiddling their thumbs because they're like, oh, it hasn't come back to my turn yet. I've been sitting here for 10 minutes.
It's always bad when the thumbs come out, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. I'd say look for that if you're a game maker.
Especially if you only get 30 minutes of screen time a day, too, right?
I know, right? You're deciding to use it there. So I find once basically you can almost, I can play this with any group who's never seen it before, and almost can predict how it's going to go because you've done a really good job to make it friendly enough for a new audience. Then we're all right, it's ready to hit the road.
And I think one of the things that you guys have done very well, obviously, as you've brought up a few times in this interview, is your utilization of crowdfunding. Obviously, Kickstarter was pretty much the OG of this, and now GameFound has become a big player as well. Is there a competitive advantage of using one over the other? Because it kind of seems like the two are the Nike and Reebok of this generation.
We're talking Kickstarter versus GameFound to launch your game on. We literally were asking ourselves that question this morning, and came to the conclusion that we don't have a credible answer there. And we're working on learning more. And honestly, we're probably going to experiment with both. We've stuck with Kickstarter so far, even though it's not a perfect platform. The reasons being that so many of the backers for our types of games probably wouldn't even consider themselves gamers at all. And so Kickstarter, it's already a weird thing to prepay, to pre-order a product that it doesn't exist yet. And that already is confusing to many people. And a lot of people click through our ads and they're like, what, this isn't Amazon? I'm just trying to buy this. I don't get it. Which is reasonable if you're not. Yeah, if you're not in the board game world, you may have never heard of crowdfunding. And so by doing it on a platform that at least has some kind of brand or much more brand recognition, that seems like the right fit for us. Now, if you're launching a kind of crunchier strategy game to an audience that's more savvy, that may not be nearly as much of a consideration.
How good did it feel when you got that first Kickstarter sale?
The first Kickstarter sale, no emotion at all. It was
Stone face,
our
huh?
coworker.
No emotions.
I would say no positive emotion. I was still in like, okay, yeah, thank you, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The first 3 days of our Kickstarter um, were almost depressing for me because we could see the writing on the wall of that. I think the first day of the Kickstarter for Charity Party, we raised $2,000, and I had posted about this on every channel I've had and told every friend I'd ever made about it. Tried to put it on Reddit and Imgur, it's another site at the time. I think day two we probably made something like $1,200. Day three, $600. And you could just continue that graph. And I was like, we've run out of like people to tell about this, and we do not have a repeatable marketing thing. And I think one thing that uh, uh, entrepreneurs, people making their first time products, myself included, you just have this dream of like, this is a great idea. I'm going to tell one person about it. They're going to tell two people about it. Those people will tell two people about it, and like word of mouth is going to propel this thing to be the best board game in the world. And it never happens that way. And so on day 4, we were like, well, I guess we'll give this whole Facebook ad thing a try. And for whatever reason, we just kind of hit those buttons in the right combination, and suddenly we were like, we just put in $50 and got back $250 in sales. Holy shit! And that I mean, the line just went right back up, and that was a discovery that was make it or break it. The most critical thing that's happened in the history of our company was that day.
Well, you figured out your competitive advantage, which is humor. And
maybe so. Yeah.
Well,
maybe so.
Because that's going to lead to one of the questions I did had was when I was looking at your website, I was going to ask you to help me understand this phrase.
Okay.
Lady, squeeze, jumbo, commotion, plop, wrinkly, man. Do you even remember?
I don't have any children yet myself, but I look forward to if I ever do showing that to my wife.
Tell me a lot of what I need to know about Ransom Note. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It's yes, that's from our game Ransom Notes, and Ransom Notes. So Ransom Notes has been our bestseller by far and away, and really has transformed the company from that side project to something that can be a full-time gig for Josh and I, and support several employees now. And there's something about just these grammatically idiotic sentences that's so funny, and I don't know what it is. And I think that combined with more than any other game I think we've made, that the players write the humor. Like that sentence right there was one that someone sent into us, I think. And it's I think giving people a way where they can become kind of that funniest version of themselves. Ransom Notes does that really well, and I think people are always so surprised at how funny they are. A lot of people don't think they have it in them, and they do.
I think that's a great point, because I think one of the things you brought up, Cards Against Humanity, is it is a great game, but you're still limited by other people's thoughts, other people's words.
Sure.
And you get enough beers in you, and we all think our own words are the funniest. And sometimes when you know you've made a good joke, you don't even care if anybody laughs. Like, that's literally me 90% of the time at home. I crack myself up. My kids look at me. They're embarrassed. Doesn't matter. Yeah. So a couple questions here about Abduction. Again, our 2023 Golden Meeple Award winner. And we're going to get back to Ransom Note here in just a couple minutes when we wrap up. But Abduction 2023 Golden Meeple Award winner. Ducks and UFOs, huh? Just a bag of words out of a hat, or?
So initially, when this game was being developed, and I thought it was going to be called Ugly Ducklings, and it was just going to be these. Well, I guess at the time we were using relatively cute-looking ducks, but I was just like, maybe we'll make them look a little uglier, and they can just be in a row, and like that was the theme. And Josh is really good at wrapping a story around whatever we're doing. And even for times where it seems unnecessary, being like, yeah, but what's the universe of this game? And my knee jerk reaction to that is always like, hey, if it's not directly contributing to getting this game out the door, why are we talking about it? But it always makes the games better, and it certainly did in this case. He was like, what if it's called Abduction? It's spelled D-U-C-K, and the theme is that there's like aliens somehow, and at the time it was just the ducks were in just like a drawstring bag, and he really pushed that. No, we got to build out this theme, and like that the silicone UFO can be a big selling point for the game, and he was absolutely right.
Yeah, the UFO makes a huge difference. Now my dogs keep wanting to play with it.
Oh yeah, keep that away from them.
But there is from a tactile perspective, reaching your hand in and just swishing your finger in there and feeling all the duck. I mean, it just adds to the quality of the experience that you have playing that game.
For sure.
But I'm also a guy who deluxifies everything, so if you put cardboard ducks in there, I'd bought the upgrade too, so you missed out some money there.
Right. Well, lucky for you, we're going to have the golden duck version soon, which is made of solid metal. And
so, there it is. I'll buy it. Just wait. So now marketing for the game, again, back to your strength, using the humor that the two of you guys have. I think that's just so amazing. My wife wanted me to make sure I told you for this interview that the reason why we got the game was because she saw one of your Facebook ads, as you've brought up many times.
Excellent. It's working.
And the woman in the video was saying, I never played board games until I played this one, and now I feel like I like board games. And I got it for Christmas, and I opened it, and I was like, did you get it because it won the Golden Meeple? And she's like, what's that? And I'm like,
that's tough.
Don't watch my stuff. Okay, but that's when we got it. We played it probably 10 times over Christmas. The kids absolutely loved it. So great job on the marketing.
Thank you.
So this was the best.
I think.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think you nailed it there. Abduction. We love that it can be a game, kind of in the way that Ransom Notes makes people realize that they're funnier than they think they are. I think Abduction hopefully helps people realize that they are kind of, capable of playing strategy board games more than they think they are. I think unfortunately strategy board games can, just hearing that phrase is a big turnoff to people because they're thinking, I'm going to sit here for 4 hours trading little wooden cubes and sheep. Nothing against Catan, but that's the vibe that they've landed in, and it doesn't have to be that way. And so this is a 15-minute game that there's still a lot of thinking involved, and that's the hope to kind of bring more people into the world of quick little fun games.
Oh, I had one move, and I used the swap card. I obliterated the white ducks, which felt good, and I got the full. I'm blanking on the name of it, but when you get the full line across one of the top or the bottom. I forget what the name was.
The formation.
Yeah.
What is that?
Not a flying V was one, but not the flying B, but it was line. Yeah.
Is that Flock Party?
I forget what it was called, but
it's
like a 7 or 8 point play, and I pulled it off with all 3 cards, and I just felt like a champion.
Yeah, it's very satisfying.
Did you know ducks are believed to be highly intelligent, emotional creatures?
I would have guessed as much.
They can play with toys, they have commands, and even give kisses. Did you know that?
I didn't know about the kisses part. We've only interacted with live ducks from afar, but I'm still waiting for somebody to send us maybe some duck eggs to hatch.
Well, and last question about Abduction, we'll kind of wrap up here, but this was obviously a big step away from pure card games for you guys, or kind of pure card games. So how did that feel? Was it a little scary walking into a new realm of different type of game?
For sure. I think because really there were 2 things happening here. It was a step away from pure card games for sure from a, just manufacturing logistics standpoint. We had gotten our feet wet a little bit with that with Ransom Notes because we had to start manufacturing word magnets and the little metal trays. So it wasn't just cards, and we were somewhat confident on do it, or we could find a manufacturing partner who could do it. I think looking back now, the most manufacturing problems we've ever had with any product is making those ducks. It's worth all the effort and stuff, but like, God, is it hard to get those right?
The sparkly green ones look great, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was those are super fun. But it's been worth it to put those in there. But I think the thing that felt like more of a leap for me was, all right, we're getting away from humor games here, which the mechanics of a humor game matter, of course, but at the end of the day, it's supposed to make you laugh. And this was like getting into a territory of balancing, and like people actually are going to care about who wins. And we ended up I don't know if this is overkill or not, but we hired one of my best friends, Chandler, who is a data scientist, to do some like pretty heavy analysis of the difficulty of achieving those different formations in order to point balance them correctly. And hours and hours of work and like some pretty deep statistical analysis. So I hope the game feels balanced. But it was scary to be like, both we're going to get real reviews on like the gameplay was odd or it wasn't quite right, and then also just like, can our business model of showing a photo or a short video of this product still work to sell the game? And luckily it has.
Well, when I pulled 5 straight pink ducks out and I got one of the shapes right away, my son did not feel it was balanced for that feedback. So it's the luck of the draw.
Stacks the ship a little bit.
So what's next? 2024, new year. What's next for you guys? New game coming up.
Yeah, several potentially.
Okay.
Can't share too many details yet, but we are. I'm super excited, of course, about Tiny Laser Heist, which we kickstarted last August and is on track to be delivered to backers in June. That one's just I've never seen anything like it out there as far as such a 3D, but still strategically heavy. Well, I don't want to say heavy, but you are. Kind of ridiculously using tiny hands with a partner to move and steal jewels without tripping lasers, but there's a lot of strategy and deception and negotiation that goes along with it. So very excited about that. We're shooting for a new Kickstarter in March with a brand new product. Can't talk about it yet, but I will say it's even more.
We're here. We're listening.
Good. Yeah. I will say it's maybe our most 3-dimensional product yet, even more so than Tiny Laser Heist. And so it's really fun, and I think pretty different than most stuff that's out there, but still fits into that easy to learn. You can get very strategic with it if you want to space. And in addition to that, we have acquired our first game, which was a Kickstarter that we saw and talked to the creator of. It's kind of a very light abstract strategy game called Yama. We're doing our best to be able to keep it called that. And we hope to be selling that by this holiday season as well. So we're working on expanding our ability to put out new cool stuff, and also, just from a business side, have brought on a full-time staff member last year, Blake, who helps us do everything: inventory, logistics, customer service, and are potentially even going to expand the team further this year.
Congratulations. So it sounds like 2024 is a huge year for you.
I hope so.
I have to tell you real quick, with the tiny hands, I wanted to comment this before I forget. Do you know what they remind me of?
I have a lot of ideas, but go ahead.
Kristen Wiig on SNL. Her weird little character where she had the little hands.
Yeah. She's doing this.
Saw those.
Well, there's I think there was a time when we were playing this game when it was in its very early stages, and we were playing them with just I think it was just your finger. Like, you were just allowed to use your finger as your tiny hand, basically. And I maybe had like some like weird little rubber thing you'd hold or whatever. But a different girlfriend was like, what if these are tiny hands? And I was like, wow, that is so much better than what we're doing right now. So thank her for that suggestion. And I think as soon as Josh heard that, he was like, "There's the theme we've been missing. It's an egg heist. It's or museum heist, I guess."
But to be clear, for the ex-girlfriend, really this was entirely your idea.
That's right. For the record,
sales.
No,
purposes.
I need to give credit where credit is due. Honestly, I think there's so many ideas that playtesters and other folks have contributed to these games over the years, and whether it be new ideas or just their willingness to sit there and kind of play through a game that is not done yet and doesn't work, we wouldn't be here without literally hundreds of people who have helped us do that.
So as we wrap up, I love to finish with this. It's everybody's favorite part, or at least it's mine. So I say everybody. It's called Feet to the Fire. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some quick questions. I don't want you to think about it. I don't want you to stew on it. I just want your gut, okay?
Ready.
All right, number one. Because I know where, Puns of Anarchy came from. Came from everybody's favorite show, Sons of Anarchy. So first question is, Jack's ending, poetic or dumb?
You're not going to like this. I've actually never watched it. Sorry.
Well, it was dumb. He rode his motorcycle, spoiler, rode his motorcycle into a truck coming at him. It was silly, ridiculous. I answered it for you.
Okay. Well, at least now I don't have to watch it.
That's a bad start to this one. All right.
Yeah, tough. Let's keep going.
All right. Who's spending more on steak, Evan or Josh?
Ooh, it's got to be Josh. Josh has some very, Josh's steak and whiskey budget is a lot higher than mine. He can cook a nice steak, though, so he deserves it.
Post-its were a big part of your early life. If you could only get one brand of Post-it, what's it going to be?
Oh, 3M, baby.
In Charty Party, you have both line graphs and bar graphs. But in this world, you have to obliterate one of them. And scatter plots. I'm sorry. You get one.
It's okay.
The other two
I get
obliterated.
one. The line graph. I mean, the line graph is the king of graphs. I think that's a given.
Oh, man. I'm a bar chart guy. I don't know. All right. Who's better at Excel, Evan or Josh? Because you can't have charts without Excel.
You can't. I have to admit it's Josh, and it's because he can do pivot tables.
So if there was a chart to this, what would the correlation be between fun at parties and excellence at Excel?
I think they'd be more closely correlated than you might imagine. Those data nerds, they go hard.
Is that Josh?
Oh yeah, it's Josh.
Because you've been ridiculously kind to him on this interview. Like I was expecting some.
Yeah, I was actually expecting. I'm going to get him in the next questions. Let's keep going here. There's got to be a couple that I can really razz him here.
If you had to banish one color of duck to an UFO to leave forever for research purposes, what color would you pick?
Ooh, Josh loves the pink ducks, so I'd say kill those immediately.
All right. Using your favorite game, Ransom Note here. I'm going to, since you're from Tennessee, I'm going to give, well, you're technically from Chicago, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Technically from Massachusetts.
Okay.
Equally chilly.
That was Blake.
We can say Tennessee
gave
for
me
now.
Chicago, so I was ready for Chicago.
Yes.
But,
oh, yikes. We have to fire her.
Well, I mean,
Tough.
annual review coming up, so. So anyway, I'm going to pick a couple Tennessee people, and I'm going to give you a ransom note, and I want to see if you can guess who it is. Ready?
Okay, ready.
Blonde, plastic, boobs, books, hillbilly.
I'm gonna have to go with Dolly Parton on this one, but it was up in the air for a moment.
Fun fact: she's a relative of mine. So
really,
yeah, I'm gonna tell her you said that about her.
I wouldn't have guessed it from your boobs, so I guess those just don't run in the family.
Yeah, it's a Parton relation there. So my mom's from Sevierville originally.
Okay, yeah, lovely spot in there.
Yeah, she was from Sevierville before it was, Sevierville. So, all right, next one. Omaha, forehead, runner-up, pizza, brother.
Huh.
I'll throw hike in
Interesting.
there as
Hike. I'm guessing that this is some sort of like presidential candidate, historical figure that I'm no, not on the right track here.
Forehead.
Give me them again. Forehead.
Omaha. Runner-up. Pizza. Brother. Hike.
Well, with
Horses. Male horses.
I'm out of guesses on this one. It's not Elvis, as far as I know. So, who do we got? Oh, wow! No, never in a million years. Well, if you'd thrown football in there,
I thought football was too easy. That's why I threw the forehead in there. So
right.
All right. Well, last question then, because I thought you were from Chicago. I was going to ask you Giordano's or Lou Malinati's, but
oh yeah,
I guess that's no go there. So
no comment. You don't have a Boston question on deck? I thought this was a hot seat.
I didn't know anything about Boston. Blake didn't tell me about Boston. I can tell you this.
I'll ask.
Red Wings are better than Bruins. I know that.
Ooh, that's tough. Well,
look at the rafters. Look at the rafters.
Yeah. That's fighting words in Boston. So as long as this doesn't make it over to there, that'll be okay. Red Sox and Yankees is always the bigger rivalry in my household growing up. But
it would be.
Yeah, it's a sports town for sure.
Yeah, and we'll be enjoying some sports tonight here in Michigan too, with the national championship game. So.
Yeah, the Chandler, the data scientist that I mentioned earlier, is a die-hard Bama fan, so it was pretty tough to watch that game with him. But we wish them the best.
So here's your last question. Then I'll leave with a good sports question. Who's going to be the Patriots coach next year?
That's if I knew that, I'd be working a different job. That's a tough one. It's going to be a weird time for Boston for sure.
Well, Evan, is there anything else you want to leave our viewership with as one last thing to say to everybody out there?
I hope that I imagine a lot of people playing or listening to this are board gamers who have been lifelong board gamers, and Josh and I think that we're entering a time where all the people who kind of played their first board game, if you will, and that was Cards Against Humanity when they were drinking in college, that there's this big opportunity to help all those people kind of get into the whole larger world of board gaming. And I think a lot of them are ready for it. And so if you're somebody who's been a board gamer, I think now's your time to invite those friends over and say, check out, we'd love it if it was Abduction, but any sort of game that you think isn't going to scare them off, I think they're ready.
Absolutely. Well, Evan Katz, thank you so much for being a part of Tabletop Tales. It was so wonderful to get to know about you, your journey,
who you
are, and more importantly, the fact that the iceberg does have a lot of mass underneath the waterline, and that's the part that got you where you are today. So with that, we wish you the absolute best, and looking forward to a wonderful 2024. And with that, thank you for tuning in for episode 2 of Tabletop Tales. Our next episode, we're going to have Donald Schultz of Freelancers joining us and talking about his journey as well. So have a wonderful day, and remember, champions never stop playing.
Never stop. Thank you again.